Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Bruhim Habayim. We want to welcome our guests online as well. If you could give them a hand clap. So I'm excited to be able to share this message with you. When we were trying to figure out what we should title this series, I was thinking about all the things that we had already done and presenting the Torah scroll. And so the things that we had set up and the dedication and all those amazing things that we had a couple of weeks ago. Wasn't that amazing? Yes. To dedicate that Torah scroll and have that time of inauguration and just that consecrated and set apart time for God and His service. So I started thinking about all those things, and I started thinking about, what should we title this series? And the thought came in, and dressed for service. And so we were just getting really into that. Rabbi would love that, and it was just fun. So I want to continue this series, Dressed for Service, but I want to get into understanding our garments. You guys with me? Yes. I want to get into that, understanding our garments. And so we're going to jump into our portion, Leviticus, Vayikra 1, chapter 1, verse 3. It starts off, it says, "If his sacrifice is a burnt offering from the herd, he is to present a male without blemish. He is to offer it at the entrance of the tent of meeting, so that he may be accepted before Adonai. He is to lay his hand on its head of the burnt offering, so that it will be accepted for him to make atonement on his behalf. He is to slaughter the bull before Adonai. Then Aaron's sons, the kohenim, are to present the blood and splash it around the altar, and that is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the cohen, are to place fire on the altar and arrange wood upon the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the kohenim, shall arrange the pieces, the head, and the fat upon the wood that is on the fire, which is atop the altar. But its innards and its legs he is to wash with water. The cohen should burn it all up as smoke on the altar for a burnt offering made by fire, a soothing aroma to Adonai." And so I'm getting into this portion, and you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with being dressed for service? Right? You guys are looking at me like, what does this have to do with being dressed for service? Well, to really understand, and before he can even perform this, God prescribed some vestments for him. So I'm going to take you to Exodus 28, verse 2 to 4. It says, "You are to make for your brother Aaron garments, set apart for serving God, expressing dignity and splendor." Say that with me. Dignity and splendor. "Speak to all the craftsmen to whom I have given the spirit of wisdom, and have them make Aaron, Aharon's garments, to set him apart for me, so that he can serve me in the office of cohen. The garments they are to make are these: a breastplate, a ritual vest, a robe, a checkered tunic, a turban, and a sash. They are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so that they can serve me in the office of cohen," or priest. And I really like this, because when we really think about being dressed for service, it's to have on the proper attire. I've always been told growing up that if I want a certain job, then you have to dress that part. Right? I'm not going to come out of a warehouse job looking for an office job. I'm not going to come dressed like I'm expecting to get a warehouse job. They're going to be like, "Oh, well, the warehouse positions are on the other side, go around back." I have to go dressed for that job. I got to present myself well, right? You guys with me? Yes. So I got some things that are on your notes, some commentary that I want to share with you, and you could actually find this in the Chumash. It says, "While performing the temple service, a cohen had to wear the vestments. Otherwise, any service he performed was invalid. As gleaned from many other commentators, the special nature of these vestments served to set the kohenim apart from others when they performed the service. The nation had to recognize that Aaron and his sons were on a spiritual level, and that this was why only they could perform the service. The special and unusual nature of the vestments helped make this apparent to all onlookers, as well as the kohanim themselves. For the way that a person approached a task influences how he will perform it. Did you catch that? For the way that a person approaches a task influences how he will perform it. So if you already approach your day as if you don't want to wake up and not do it, guess what? Then your day is going to not be pretty good. There's this thing about Mondays that people hate. Why? I really don't know. To me, it's just another day. People hate Mondays. I mean, if you have social media and you go on it, they start off Sunday morning talking about how horrible Monday's going to be. I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't the scripture say let every day take care of itself? I mean, you're already planning your horrible day and haven't even started your Sunday. It's just amazing to me. I mean, when you plan that, it already shows you how you're going to go into that day. Right? That the kohanim could perform the service only in garments bespeaking the sacred nature of what they were doing suggests also that the Jew who prays or involves himself in the performance of other commandments, meaning our own service of God, should take care to dress and conduct himself with dignity and respect for the one whom before he stands. And so I remember when I was being trained and Rabbi was helping me out and being groomed to become a rabbi, the first thing that he spoke into my life was this very statement, to know whom before you stand, which is written across every ark. And it's a constant reminder to know whom before you stand. Your service, the very nature of what you do, not just here, because what we do here should just be a reflection of what we're already doing at home. You guys hear me? Yes. What we do here on this stage or during worship or just in general should be a reflection of what we're doing at home. And I'm telling you, if what you're doing at home and what you do here or out on the street is different, there's something wrong. You just put on certain garments just to play the role. We're not role playing here. This is the real deal. We have to understand that these garments that God has given us are special garments. And so we can only understand that when first we understand whom before we stand. And if we don't understand whom before we stand, then the garments are kind of meaningless. We have to understand that. All the priestly vestments had to be made of materials, and this is amazing. All the priestly vestments had to be made of materials that were property of the nation and have been contributed by people for the temple service. And that's found in the Yoma 35b. This symbolizes that the kohanim were not private priests or private parties engaged in a lofty endeavor to better themselves. They submerged their own personalities and became representatives of Israel, or the people, carrying out the nation's urge to raise itself to ever higher spiritual plateaus. In the service of God, it is not worthy that the cohen was not permitted to wear anything in addition to the prescribed vestments while performing the service. Not even a bandage was permitted to interpose between his flesh and his vestments. He and his vestments were like a single unified vessel performing the divine will. This is amazing. Because when you think about him and performing the actual service that we read in Leviticus chapter 1, they will understand that he had to be perfect. Doesn't the scripture say, be perfect as the Lord your God is perfect? He had to make atonement before himself before he could make atonement for the people. And so it's like me coming in here with my issues and my heaviness, and then you asking me to pray for you. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need somebody to pray for me first. You see, I have to come in here ready and dressed for service. I can't come in here with all my issues trying to serve you when I haven't even been serviced myself. Are you with me? Yes. I have to come prepared. I have to come ready to serve. I have to come ready for action. As I was putting this message together, I'm telling you, from last week to this week, and I thank you guys for the prayers of last week. I really thought about, why I had to go and take care of the things I had to take care of. But when I started putting this message together, I realized that it was a call to action. It was being dressed for service, ready to do what I had to be done. This week, I was in the middle of putting my message together, and I got it done pretty early. I got it done, and my cousin, she puts this thing on Facebook, and she says, guys, can you pray for me? I'm scared. I just had a stroke. She was at the hospital, and it was just like, I was scrolling through it. I seen it, and I was like, I'll just message her and just tell her she's okay. She lives in Los Angeles. And so I was just like, okay, I felt convicted. I'm putting this message together, dressed for service, ready to serve, and I'm over here just overlooking. And so I felt convicted. I said, you know what, I gotta go over there. I gotta do something. She lives in LA. I called her. I said, hey, are you okay? I'm gonna come visit you. And this is a person who's kind of an outcast of the family. She got kicked out of the family. She was very young. She had children. It was a lot of issues that she had, and became a drug addict, was on the streets at the age of 12. And just all these things took place in her life, and she was just broken, and she feels like she can't really reach out to the family or come around the family. And I just felt I had to go down there to be with her. When I got there, I was almost in tears, because she came out with this big old smile, and she's like, you made my year. Yes. And I was like, we just started the year. And your year's already made. But it was just, what I saw in her was just this 5-year-old child that was just neglected and was still looking for love and compassion. I went there not really trying to show her anything or give her anything, but to listen to her. That's what people need sometimes. Yeah, we could be dressed for service, but sometimes people just need you to listen. And when we listen, that's a service in its own. And so I went in there, and I just, prayed with her a little bit and just got to talking, and she just felt so much better. That's what we're called to do. When we put on these garments, when God calls her, it's not us, it's not about ourselves. It's about putting on these garments to serve, first of all, our King, and second of all, the community. See, when the priests put on those garments, they were almost like borrowed garments, if you will, because they were given from the community. And so when they put them on, it was a sign of he's ready to serve. Right. He's ready to do his service, not just before the Lord, but for us. Yeah. He's ready to help. When we're here, when Rabbi Brian's here, when I'm here, when our elders are here, we're ready to serve you. We're not ready to be served. We're not waiting here like, oh, they're here, now they can set up. No, we're here. We're ready to serve you. What do you need? That's what we're here for. We represent that priesthood. What I like about this as well is that this priesthood and the colors that are represented in it also represent the kingship. And so when you really understand us as kings and priests, then you understand who you truly are. But so many times people don't like changing their garments because they like keeping that crown on. See, to serve as a king means to serve your community with the dignity and respect, to do your business correctly and rightly. But when you get home and when you come to the synagogue, you got to take off those kingly garments and you got to put on those priestly garments, especially at home. You don't serve as a king in your home. You serve as a priest because you need to minister to your family, not boss them around. We have to understand what our garments mean and what they represent. If we're not understanding that, we're just putting on garments that probably weren't meant for us. Are you listening? I want to jump to our prophetic hindsight. 1 Samuel 6:16, 11 to 13. It starts off by saying, then Samuel asked Jesse, are these all the boys you have? They're still the youngest, he replied, but right now he's tending sheep. Send and bring him, Samuel said to Jesse, for we will not sit down until he comes here. So we sent word and had him come. Now he was ruddy-cheeked, with beautiful eyes, and handsome appearance. They're like, describing me here. Yeah. Then Adonai said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. From that day on, the Ruach Adonai came mightily upon David. But that's what I want to really focus on. When he was anointed, when he was called, when God placed the anointing oil on him, from that day on, he was anointed, and the Spirit of God clothed him from that day forward. See, when God calls you and when God anoints you and when God calls us to be those kings and priests, it's not just for a certain time. It's not just for just your service here or just your service at home or in your community or work. It's for all time. You have to understand that it's for all time. God doesn't just say, oh, just for this year, you're good. Put on the garments, I'm going to put you to the training. See, that training is for our life. It's constant training. It's constantly going on. We don't just put on garments when we want to. Oh, today I feel like praising, so I'm going to put on garments of praise. You know when you should put on your garments of praise the most? When you're not feeling like praising. When you don't feel like serving. Then you got to strip yourself and say, you know what, I need to put on my servant garments. We need to understand that these aren't just garments to put us in a robe to make us look better or make us feel better about ourselves. These are roles that God has given us so that we can serve others. Because I know when I'm feeling my best is when I'm serving others. I'm telling you, sometimes when I'm not feeling so great, I call somebody to encourage. Because in the midst of that, I know I'm encouraged. How do I encourage myself? David constantly said, I must encourage myself in the Lord. How do we do that? We put on our garments to serve. Because if we're waiting around for somebody to service us, guess what? That might not even come. We'll be waiting for a long time. Then we become bitter. We become upset. We become angry. We leave congregations because, well, nobody's meeting my need. Why don't you go out and meet somebody's need? Why don't you reach out to that person you haven't seen? I'm telling you, there's a lot of times people won't call me to see how I'm doing. I thank God for Angelo. Where is he at? He calls me. How you doing? I'm praying for you. He's not the only one. There's others. But I'm encouraged by that because it lets me know people are thinking about me, not just when we're here. And I call some of you guys too, out of the blue, because I want you guys to know I'm thinking about you. But we have to understand that once we leave this place, though the tallit may come off, doesn't mean I don't serve or I'm not standing before God anymore. I have to understand that. But you also have to understand that there's always somebody that's going to try to strip your garments away. There's people out there that see what God is doing and they're trying to remove those garments that he put upon you. I want to take you to 1 Samuel 17:32. It says, David said to Saul, and you got to understand the context here. David goes out to meet his brothers. His dad sends him to meet his brothers. And David kind of like wants to be not really nosy. He wants to see what's going on with this battle. He hears the Philistine, the filthy Philistine, stand up and call out Israel and say, hey, you guys want to do battle? Let's go. I'm here. Let's go. Who wants to come? Who come at me, bro? he's calling them out. And they're in fear. And so David said to Saul, let no one's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. I want you to see something here. Before David was anointed, he was already serving. He was already serving the sheep. How can he lead the sheep of Israel if he hasn't led the sheep of his own house? He tells him, I will go out, your servant. See, just because we're rabbis, just because we're elders, just because we're deacons, doesn't mean we stop serving. We're here to serve. So he continuously tells them, hey, your servant. Honestly, if it was me and I was young, I would have been like, hey, I'm anointed as king. Let me go out here and do it. But he was humbled. He was humbled to say, hey, I'm still a servant. And until God puts me in that proper position, right now I'm just in my training. I'm still going to go out and do it. He says, your servant will go out and fight this Philistine. Then Saul said to David, you can't go fight this Philistine, for you're just a youth. Are you youth listening? There's nothing you guys cannot do just because of your age. That's right. You're just a youth, and he's been a warrior since his youth. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, so this uncircumcised Philistine will become like one of them, since he has defied the ranks of the living God. Then David said, Adonai, who has delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Go, said Saul to David, and may Adonai be with you. Then Saul clothed David with his own garb, put a brazen helmet on his head, and clothed him in armor. David strapped the sword on his garments and tried to walk, but he was not used to it. So David said to Saul, I cannot walk in these, for I am not used to them. So David took them off. I love this because somebody's always going to try to put you in their own mold. They're always going to try to shape you. They're always going to try to produce mini-me's of themselves. And so the thing I love about Rabbi Brian is he's not trying to reproduce himself in a way that you have to be exactly like him. He tries to find your unique identity, to mold you into the person you were meant to be, not the person he wants you to be. We need leaders like that, to mold you into the person that you need to be, not the person I want you to be. I don't want a bunch of little Ericks here. Well, my wife, yeah, but I don't want people just like me. I want them to find their unique identity. You have to find who you are. Because if you're trying to fit who everybody else is, you never know who you are, and you'll never know who God is. David had to take off the garments that other people try to put on him. We have to take off those garments of our past. The garments that people tell us, this is what you were, this is what you are, and this is what you'll always be. You have to remove those garments because they weren't meant for you. And when you're able to remove those garments, it may not be the garments they want, but it's the garments that God put upon you. And when you walk in those garments, it doesn't matter what it looks like, you're able to fulfill your purpose and your identity in who He is. 2 Samuel 22:40 says, "You've girded me with strength for battle. You made those rising up against me bow down before me." But I love this. You girded me. You clothed me. You put upon me with strength for battle. You have placed these vestments upon me. And we got to understand that our vestments aren't just for serving, they're also to do battle in. When we praise, we're doing battle. When we pray, we're doing battle. And everything that we're doing unto the Lord, there's a battle going on. And we could learn from David not to use somebody else's armor, not to use something that wasn't meant for me. What Rabbi Brian has upon him, that spirit, I want that spirit. Mm-hmm. But guess what? His clothes probably won't fit me. I won't fit in some of yours. You won't fit in mine. Right. You have to fit in your unique clothing that God has made just for you. Amen. And when you're in that, you're walking in everything that He has. You're fulfilling your call and your purpose. I want to take you to our messianic fulfillment. I'm going to jump to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. Paul tells Timothy, he says, "I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and Messiah Yeshua, who is able to judge the living and the dead at His appearing and His kingdom. Proclaim the word." What do we got to do? Proclaim the word. "Be ready when it's convenient or an inconvenience." Are you hearing me? Yeah. What do? Proclaim the word. And be ready whether it's convenient or an inconvenience. Confront, rebuke, encourage with complete patience and instruction. Now, I know you guys have patience because of all the little technical difficulties we had today. So I know you guys have patience. We should have the same patience when we're serving people who seem impatient. There's some times when people, not here, you guys are patient, where people test our patience. But when we put on those garments, it's not about us. It's about serving and honoring. Because what were these vestments made for? For dignity and splendor. How are we able to act and conduct ourselves with dignity and splendor when we're giving out everything else except the dignity and splendor? With complete patience and instruction. For the time will come when they will not put up with sound instruction, but they will pile up for themselves teachers in keeping with their own desire. to have their ears tickled, and they will turn away from hearing the truth and wander off to myth. You, however, keep a clear mind in all things, withstanding hardships. Do the work of proclaiming the good news and fulfill your service. Fulfill your service. See, we have many people that came and went, and they were listening. Their ears were being tickled, like the scriptures saying. They're listening to these online teachers and all these people that they have no connection with. Well, this person says something else, and this person. And well, let's look at the doctrine. What are they saying? What are they doing? I tell people, hey, if they find somebody on the internet, hold on. Let's see the fruit of their work. Because God doesn't say you know them by their flash. He says you know them by their fruit.
Wow.
Am I right?
Yeah.
You know them by their fruit, not their flash. Yeah, they could bring a charismatic message, but the world has charismatic speakers. They could tickle your ear. They could get you to listen. But we're here for the service. We're here for the long haul. We're here to make sure that you're constantly on the right path. And when you stray away, guess what? We got that little rebuke for you. But it's done in love and in patience. We have to understand how we serve. We don't just kick them out. We don't just, well, they're on the wrong path. No, it's your job. Now that you know they're on the right path, it's your job to restore. How to restore? We put on those garments. We need to serve. Romans 13:14 says, instead, put on the Lord Messiah Yeshua and stop making provision for the flesh, for its cravings. Stop following after your lustly desires. That goes for the priest as well. Because before he could make atonement for others, he had to make atonement for himself. I told you guys before, not every day do I wake up and say I need to pray and jump up all excited. I wrestle with my sheets sometimes. I have to tell my sheets, get off me. You're not my wife. Right? Am I the only one? I guess I am. We have to, we struggle, right? We're still in this flesh. We're still doing, we're still seeing the things of this world. We're hearing all these things that are taking place. Our minds could wander. We could go into this spiritual exile in our minds because we start looking at what's going on instead of looking at what's happening. Start looking at the one who has and holds our future. We look at everybody else. So we have to refocus our eyes. We have to refocus our mentality. We have to stop thinking with this mental mentality of our flesh and get into the right spirit. We have to understand who we are. Galatians 3:27 says, for all of you, who? All of you who were immersed in Messiah have clothed yourself with Messiah. See, we don't have the vestments yet. Because there will be a third temple. And they've made the vestments already. Go on the Temple Institute website. The vestments, the breastplates. I mean, if you're not ready or don't know about the third temple, I encourage you to check out the Temple Institute. Because there will be a third temple. The Messiah will not come just to an empty place. Now, whether he builds it or we build it, that's a whole different story. But I'm excited for that temple era to come back. And so we have to understand that though we don't put on these vestments as the priest did, and if you go in your notes, the 8 vestments are there. And you could read those and study those on your own time. But we understand that we don't have those physical vestments here. I don't come in on Shabbat and say, okay, give me that breastplate and give me all those things that are needed. No, I clothe myself in Messiah Yeshua. Because he is our high priest and we follow his order. And so we put on these vestments, we put on these garments, these spiritual garments, just like, we don't put on physical helmets of salvation. There's these spiritual things that we put on, renewing our mind in his word and understanding what they truly mean. And so we have to understand that we must clothe ourselves in Messiah. And I want to close with this. Luke chapter 12, verse 35. This one was the best one. And it actually references when Elisha tells his servant to go get dressed for action. Now, Elijah's servant wasn't able, Gehazi, he wasn't able to perform a miracle because there was still a nature in him that was of the flesh. Right? When Elisha heals the king, Naaman? He goes after, he follows him, and he's like, hey, you know what? Elijah sends me, and, you know, he does want some of that gold and some of those garments, and he hides them, and then he comes back in, and Elijah says, the very thing that he had, it's upon you now. We can't play the game of thinking that, yeah, we're cool here, and once we step out of the synagogue, hey, God, I did my service for today, I'm good, and I'm going back to my old lifestyle. Your speech has to match the fruit. It has to match. Your lifestyle has to match up. What we do here has to be a reflection of who we already are. I love this, what Yeshua tells them. He says, be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. The priests were to keep the light continuously burning. If we are those priests and represent the kingdom as a royal priesthood, we need to constantly keep that lamp burning within ourselves, which represent the temple for now. We have to constantly be dressed for action. We have to constantly have that light kindling within us. Because once that light goes out, it's almost like removing our garments. We have to keep those garments on. We have to constantly be ready for action, be ready to serve. When we come here, when we're out on the street, wherever we are, we have to be ready to serve. I want to give you some points for my message. Before we put on our garments, we have to understand the garments. Our garments represent beauty and splendor. Our garments are meant to serve Hashem, His people, and our community. I know Rabbi Brian showed that picture of me and Deborah last week when we were at the police station. It was just so amazing to be able to go there and share with them the Torah. I mean, because the Torah is a perfect unity of community and God. It's the perfect tool to use. And so I felt in my heart that the first place we should take the Torah outside of the synagogue was to the police station. Because the people who try to uphold the law with the people who walk by the law should come unified. Now, law is a loose term because we know it as Torah, as instruction. But it's the perfect picture of love the Lord your God with all your soul, might, and strength. And the commandments are a picture of things commandments between you and God, and the rest are between you and man. So we bring that perfect unity when we have the right garments on. But when we have the wrong garments, we're walking in chaos. Number 3 says our garments are meant to withstand the enemy in battle. Just like David took off the garments that somebody tried to clothe him with, and he put on the garments that God put on him, he was able to defeat his enemies. He was able to stand against Goliath. He was not only to stand against Goliath, but all the enemies after that. So he became a conqueror, or more than a conqueror, because he always kept the garments that the Lord clothed him with, instead of putting garments that other people put upon him. Number 4, we must always be dressed in Messiah for service and action. We must always be dressed in Messiah for service and action. Did you guys enjoy this message this morning? I'm going to call up our Hazan. You guys could stand in the presence of the Lord as He pronounces the blessing.
Yivarech Adonai ve'yishmerech you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord turn his countenance towards you and establish peace for you. From the Prince of Peace, Sar Shalom, Yeshua the Messiah.